John is an orphan student at the globally sponsored United High School, where only the best from each nation earn entry through rare sponsorship certificates. Though he once excelled in a small primary school, he gradually lost his ambition and settled into an average life filled with games, routine study, and quiet resignation. Everything changes when he experiences a strange, vivid dream of a futuristic technological empire rising and collapsing in silence. Moments later, John awakens, not in his classroom, but in a surreal void filled with floating lights and unknown systems. A mysterious interface reveals an impossible truth. He has been rebooted as a nanobot unit with severely limited capabilities, stranded in an unfamiliar system environment. His existence is unstable, his power negligible, and survival uncertain. Guiding him is a newly formed virtual assistant system, childlike, inexperienced, and lacking the core functions of a proper system. It cannot grant quests or rewards, only attempt to connect to a wider system hub and discover opportunities for growth. With little else to rely on, John names it Rogue. Chapter 1, Nanobot is Weak Alone United High School, a high school sponsored by all nations of the world, each nation possessing one in their borders. John was a student who got in through the International Sponsorship Certificate he got as top of his class when he graduated from primary school. The ISC was a way for poor households and orphans to enter the school without paying for board and study. John was an orphan and study hard when he was in primary school. The school he went to wasn't big and not popular. The nation chooses 10 random schools, and those in the top 10 of these schools can get a certificate, and was second in his grade when graduated. John later realized that no matter how he studies, he wasn't smartest and just would enjoy his days by playing console and computer games. He particularly liked fantasy games. John also reads science fiction stories if he was not playing games. After school, John would first complete his homework and study for an allotted time, before evening to play. On weekends, from Friday night till Sunday evening, he does what he wants, other than doing his chores at home. Since he never failed a subject and even stayed among the above average, the teachers can't really do anything other than nagging at him. One morning, while John was sleeping arms crossed on his desk at school, he started having vivid dream of images flashing through his mind. He saw a prosperous technological imperial capital city, with flying vehicles flying in the air, high-rise buildings that reached the sky like pillars holding the sky up, and even a few beautiful green domes were seen within the capital. Then the images start to change, vehicles falling from the sky, buildings collapse, and even those domes cracking open, revealing inside trees and plants. There were no conflicts among the populace, but the air of doomsday could be felt even by John, who was merely dreaming. The dream was not long, and it was only images that were to be shown. There were no sound, no motion, like a bad quality slideshow where every time the image changes, it puts a pure white intermission between, and you're wearing a virtual glass while watching with nothing else visible, not even light. What a bad dream. Why is it so vivid? That's a first, John muttered with a lackluster voice as he opened his eyes slowly, but halfway through, his eyes shot wide open as John was stunned by what he saw. He was surrounded by an ethereal space. The surroundings were void with specks of lights of different colors appearing here and there. What caught John's focus the most was the floating screen that appeared before him just then. Name J4592. John, Primary Unit 1 Secondary Unit N/A. Status Rebooted Nanobot Unit, in progress updating systems, warning, failed to update. This is due to incompatible hardware of this world, generating a new system from scratch. Let's see if you're lucky. The system was created successfully. With an 85% chance of failure, you got good luck. Do not rely on luck too much. There is bad luck as well. This is not normal, John thought to himself as he looked at the out-of-place text on the window that stood out in a different color. For the time being, John set that aside and concentrated on reviewing the data. Even this action felt odd for John. He wasn't interested at this moment, so I am a nanobot, and I just got rebooted. Why new hardware needed? And what with this new system, which I was actually lucky to get with such a high failure chance? This is a dream, right? John was perplexed. He still didn't understand how he had ended up in this predicament. Either he had died or his soul had been transmigrated Either way, he cannot recall what happened. He couldn't have just died or something, right? He was unsure which scenario was accurate. It felt like it was just a bad dream, and he hoped it was. Putting aside these concerns, there were 3 additional floating screens along with 2 third-dimensional boxes. One of the 3D boxes looks like an artificial reality map with a white glowing dot as its center, surrounded and covered by gray dust all over the white dot, as if it were buried beneath them. The other dimensional box housed a mechanical bug-like model at its center, which should represent the body of the nanobot. Additionally, there were statistics provided around the model, and based on these figures, it was clear that the model was significantly weak and required numerous nanounits to enhance its strength and be more useful. As for the floating screens, he believed that the central one provided an overview, while the other 2 were currently blank. From what John could tell, that is a long and hard life awaits if this is not a dream. Nanobots are really weak on their own, is what John thought as he saw all this. Chapter 2, Virtual Assistant System. John shook his head, clearing the distracting thoughts, and focused more on the tasks at hand. Putting aside the screens and recalling the system that was created, he thought to himself, with a system, I should be able to become strong quickly, and at least he could survive, right? With that, John tried calling out for the system. After no response, and just when John thought something wasn't right, a shy, small voice came from the depths of the ethereal space, the voice sound like that of a child. Hello, I am your system assistant, and I will assist you with all my power, sir. John couldn't help but be surprised when hearing a child's voice and suddenly recalling those out-of-place texts. A sense of understanding along a bad feeling welled up from within him. He must not try, but must figure out what it meant by assisting. When you mentioned assistance, did you mean that you would provide me with quests to complete, a mall and such? John had to ask. But the answer he received just confirmed his bad feeling. I apologize, I am a new system. I cannot provide tasks or rewards, but what I can do is assist you by creating virtual tools, like these screens, as well as connecting to the system hub and looking for tasks we can complete for system points. John remained silent as he contemplated. Even though learning of the system hub, its secrets wasn't important at this moment. After a moment, John continued to ask, what is this system hub about? Is it a place where different kinds of systems, like you, gather? And what about these system points you mentioned? What are type of tasks? John was confused at first, but also curious, as he never read about this kind of information. The childish voice quickly answered John's inquiry. Yes, it's like a social network, also a market community, for systems like me. We are sentient, after all, we work above algorithms. As for the system points, it's our currency we use to trade with. And tasks are challenges of sorts that high-ranked systems give to newbies like us. These tasks consist of gathering intel on materials and stuff, not entirely sure how it actually works yet. All new systems and first hosts are in it together, and with those points, we can learn new things and even upgrade. What about physical goods? John asked. He found it odd that the system only mentioned learning about things and not buying items. The voice answered a bit timidly. I am new and too low of rank, so I do not have permission nor the right to buy physical goods. We don't possess a storage space yet either. Without it, trade is impossible. John could only sigh, as he knew that it was going to be a tough life for him. He was a slacker and got used to it. He always did what was the minimum requirement of him. Now he couldn't slack off even when he wanted to. What's your name? John inquired, believing all systems, even new ones, should have a name. I am your virtual assistant system. I do not have a name yet. The voice of a child came after a moment's silence. John thought for a bit before saying, I will call you Rogue, since it's a neutral name. Chapter 3, basically, working with scraps. So, Rogue, is this also your doing? John asked while pointing at the virtual screens and boxes. This is what remains of the corrupted data I gathered from the previous programs of the Nanobot system. Basically scraps, Rogue replied with innocent tone, causing John to freeze. Wait, scraps, as in only the things that remain, nothing more? John wished he was wrong right now. This means that if this is everything left over, doesn't that mean he is more screwed? Yes, this is everything. An unknown energy causes both the software and the hardware of the nanobots to malfunction, as the energy acts as a virus, as if it refuses other types of energy signals to exist. came Rogue's reply. So, this energy would attack me too? John couldn't help but ask. Since he had become the nanobot, doesn't that mean he becomes a target? No, you see, this is the only nanobot that survived and adapted but not successfully. It had to absorb your soul when you passed, and according to the senior, to fully adapt since you had what it needed. John wanted to ask about this senior, but chose not to since he guessed it was that weird message in the overview window from before CH001. So, he asked instead. So, what was required from me? This was his biggest curiosity right now. Rogue remained silent for a few seconds as it was thinking deeply, only replying in a confused voice. I don't know. Okay, John was frustrated, but he knew that, as a newly created system, it was impossible to know everything. He can only blame his bad luck. He decided to focus on their current situation first after contemplating for a bit. What tasks are there to do? Insufficient energy to connect to the hub. Rogue replied with a sad voice. Clearly, Rogue tried but failed to connect. John was surprised but quickly calmed down. Okay, can we gather energy? Like absorbing energy in our surroundings? John couldn't help but wonder how the nanobot could have previously absorbed his soul. The software was corrupted along with the other corrupted data. I do not know how, but I believe we should regain energy based on my understanding of how the nanobots were destroyed, Rogue replied. That suck. John was dejected but felt like it was too troublesome to ask further about it. A restraint feeling appeared and disappeared. John didn't notice. So, what can we do with the energy we have? We can only reform the nanobot's body. Rogue moved the virtual box with the 3D bug model in front of the other windows and map. John looked at the virtual box as it was moved while Rogue continued to speak. We can only do it once before going into sleep mode. Hearing this, John first thought that was not needed until he looked closer at the bug model, and then, without hesitation, he said, let's make it in cylinder form like a cocoon first. The reason for this choice is, firstly, that nanobots tend to have bug-like features. In John's opinion, there are better forms. Secondly, it would reflect his current state in his opinion, mentally. And thirdly, the bug in the box looks like a cockroach, the form that is censored in cartoons. As the cockroach form of the model changed form, John felt like something left his body, as well as something else entered his surrounding space. Before he could even think about what just happened, he blacked out as he entered sleep mode.